What is up, everybody? Welcome to Cobra Kai Nation, and welcome Daniel J.Kim to the show. It feels weird, like I've been thinking about this discussion, but I literally just saw you like not long ago at the premiere for season 6. So it's been hectic, right? We were just saying about that, and like, thank you for coming on, man. It's actually gonna be really fun talking to you about everything with season 6.
Dude, of course, this is an honor for me, man. I mean, it was so good seeing you, like, in person at the carpet. I know we've been kind of exchanging messages back and forth, but it's
Yeah,
super nice
yeah,
to be on the
yeah.
show. Thanks for having me, man.
No, no worries, man. I was very happy to meet you in person, and just to touch on all this craziness with part one. Uh, you've been doing acting for several years now, and you obviously knew about Cobra Kai, before you
Oh,
were in
yeah,
it and
man.
everything.
Dude, I auditioned for the first season of Cobra Kai. It was
There you
I've been in
go.
since the beginning, man. I was like, "Wow, what is this show?" So, yeah.
Who did you audition for?
I auditioned for Kyler. Joe got it
Oh,
very, very
damn.
well deserved. I was not at all ready for that part or for that season. Joe was killing it. So I was kinda like,
Mm,
"Oh, man, I've missed my shot. There's no way I'm gonna be in the show now." I would love to be in the because 'cause I'm thinking of it as, like, the sequel to Karate Kid, and it's like, "Oh my
yeah.
gosh, to be a part of it now." But then, comes season 6, and we jump in, and we had an opportunity to be in it, and I was fortunate enough that the creators wanted me on the show, so it was really, really sweet to be on it.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
so
man,
glad,
full
man.
circle.
I'm so glad. That is full circle, yeah. Like, I find that crazy as well because we could have had an alternate universe where you played Kyla and then maybe Joe played Yoon.
Joe could have played
That would
Yoon.
that would have been
I
crazy.
I I wanna see that version, the multiverse version of Cobra Kai where we're coming
Yeah.
through Doctor Strange portals.
Yeah,
Talk to Joe about it. We'll see if we can make it happen.
that's hilarious. Oh my god. But wow, thank you for sharing that. Like, that's super cool, and I think I think fans tend to forget though, like, some of the guys that have wanted to be in the show, or like I know, it's like with Jacob Bertrand who plays Eli, like I think
Mhm.
it was sorry Gianni. I think he auditioned to play Eli, and then I think they switched it. So then he was more of like the suited type for
Yeah,
Eli, and then vice versa. So it's just little things like that are so interesting when you find them out. But
that's the one.
so I'm assuming you watched the Karate Kid films growing up, obviously,
Oh,
like,
yeah. I
before
watched
Cobra Kai.
1 and 2 growing up, and it's only, like, recently that I went back and was, like, watching clips of 3 and stuff like that, yeah, but 1 and 2 I watched growing up, yeah.
Right, and I mean, 3 had, like, I think over the years, people kinda slate 3 a lot, although I feel like the stuff with Terry Silver was, like, such a highlight, and, the stuff with 2 and 1, I mean, so iconic, like, I mean, 1 is always gonna be the one, of course, but 2, I think,
Absolutely.
underrated. The whole Okinawa
Yeah,
journey, I
man!
loved it.
Dude, I keep saying to people, Yuji and his incredible biceps, his insane physique as Chosen, and his, like, devil may care attitude, dude, he's a
Absolutely
top
love it.
tier Karate Kid antagonist for sure.
Right, and I think I love the way he's had that full circle chosen in the series,
Oh, yeah.
and that's definitely a character I think we can all appreciate equally because he's just such a badass. And Yuji, man, he's such a cool guy,
Dude,
like so cool.
I love Yuji. Yuji's the best, man. He's an incredible guy. You've had a chance to meet him and talk to him, of course, but yeah,
At the
dude,
carpet
he's so
was
cool.
It was just dude, he came out, like, with the coolest drip and then, like, wearing the Kobe Bruce Lees, like, I
Yeah,
actually really wanted to buy those in the past. I was just like, "Dude, you came with the
dude.
mission, man." I loved it.
Yeah, he's got the best shoe collection of the cast, I imagine. Yuji for sure. He's got all the J's, you know?
I bet every time he talks about that, he's like, "Yeah, I've got a collection, and you can keep those for your collection, man."
Yeah, man.
I think with this show, I mean, there's been so many great returns and, characters in the show that I think have had, like, really great redemptions and,
Mhm, mhm.
just to see, you been wanting to, or you've been wanting to be in the show from like the start of it,
Yeah.
like just seeing the journey of the show, and now you finally being a part of it with season 6 and playing such an important role with like, being this character of Yoon Do-jin, who's a new Korean student in Sensei Kim's dojo. He's essentially the top student before Kwon takes that. So like, just how does that
Yeah.
feel for you, just seeing the journey of the show, and then you're coming into it in this final season?
Oh, man. I guess it's just been such a wild ride and, like, an incredible blessing. I think for me, it's like, as an actor, it's like you usually can't think of a lot of, I guess, what is to come or kind of the scale of everything that you're in, you know what I mean? I think if you think of that, it gets, like, a little too heavy. Instead, you just think about, like, what is my character doing in this scene? What do they want? And I'm asking, John, Josh, and Hayden where they want the character to go. But ever since like, stopped filming, I've been talking to Brandon, I've been talking to other friends, like, the word legacy has been coming up more and more, and kind of the weight of like, "Oh my gosh, wow, like, this movie that we were in love with this as kids and that our dad showed us and that we, like, absolutely adored." And then, like, being a fan of season 1 and 2 and, like, absolutely loving the show, and then coming back on the ship with it now, it's like, wow, we're really part of something really incredible and special. Like, shows like Cobra Kai, where it's like a sequel show, and it's written so well with so much love, like, those don't exist, man. Like, you can count them on, a hand maybe. And so, yeah, to be a part of that, it feels like a really huge honor. And I'm so glad that people love Korean Cobra Kai as much as we'd hoped they would. And so, yeah, man, that's been incredible for both the fan reaction to see that and also for us. So, yeah, man, I'm real thankful.
Right, and I mean, you got guys like I'm really happy that you guys are getting loads of love for it. Like you and Brandon with the character of Yoon and Kwon, for example, have been so awesome for the show. I mean, to give it this sense of, you know, expansion on the universe as well. Korea has been something that the show has teased, and ever since we heard that Master Kim was real, and then Sensei Kim coming
Mhm.
into it, it's just really pushed the show to another level, and it's allowed more of an understanding on the martial arts inside this universe. And when you first got the role of Yoon, like and then realizing you're going to be part of this Korean dojo,
Yeah.
there's always this importance of characters, being part of a certain journey to complement the story.
Mhm.
Your character's mission, I feel, is going to be a big one into not only show another side of Cobra Kai, but to really test those opponents that you're going to see in the Sekai Taikai. So,
Yeah, man.
how did it feel playing a role in that sense?
Well, I think, as soon as you hear gonna be on Cobra Kai, you're like, "Oh, alright, we're gonna have the best outfits, we're gonna have the best theme song, we get to say whatever," and I think it's been really fun, to be, the villains of the show. In part 1 in particular is so fun to establish our dynamic in Korea and see that, even in this other school, there are rivalries and there's like a power like dynamic and all this fun stuff to chew on. And I can't say too much about going into part 2, but all I'll say is it's gonna be incredibly hyped to see what Cobra Kai does and what Korean Cobra Kai is there for. So yeah, man, I'm excited to see it too.
Right, and I think
It'll be hype. It'll be hype.
part two, from what I understand, is going to be like something else. I know the creators touched on it in this new like little Netflix video called Inside the Dojo,
Yeah, Inside the
and
Dojo. Yeah.
there's some really cool stuff in it. And you were talking about the drip. I have seen the Cobra Kai bomber jackets, bro. I want one right now. Like, I need to go. I need to just call Frank and be like, "Yo, send me one right
Dang,
now," because
man.
that's the
Hey,
coolest Cobra Kai drip I think I've ever seen.
it's incredible. Frank did an amazing job. I can't say too much about it, but, like,
Mm.
all I'll say is that all of us, after we saw what our costumes would be like, in both part 1 and part 2, there were so many people being like, "Can I take it home? Can I take it? How much
Oh,
can I
I
pay you
bet.
for it?" There was a lot of people being like, "Dang, Frank really popped off on this one," and yeah, you did an amazing job.
Right. I absolutely love the evolution with the Cobra Kai gis as well, right? Like there's you go back to like the original 84 gi with Kreese's dojo and what
Yeah.
Johnny wears, and then when he opens his dojo, it's kind of got that, but then you get to Silver's dojo, and then it becomes the black gis finally come in with the
Mhm.
red, and now the Korean Cobra Kai dojo. I mean, those like training gis are cool, but then seeing the walkout at the end of episode 5, oh, that's
Oh,
cold,
yeah.
man. That's cold.
With the music, the black keys, the kind of the
Da,
techno
da,
style,
oh,
oh, yeah, it's amazing. We got,
dude.
like, the techno style pants, and you see this showing
Yeah.
up, and people are like, "Oh, dang, like, these guys mean business." So
Yeah. It's just a look. that they when they finally see Miyagi-Do as well, obviously hearing like, "Oh, these guys are gonna be in the tournament, they're gonna be nothing." Like, they're just seeing Brandon's face, like, obviously in character of Kwon, just like, "Is that it?"
Yeah,
Like,
his little
you can tell
his
he doesn't care.
bombastic side eye when he's like,
Yeah,
does the
dude,
thing.
that was a bombastic side eye for sure,
It's
yeah.
so good.
That was crazy. But, so, like, yeah, so let's go into episode 3. So that's the debut for Yoon.
Yes, sir.
And I absolutely love the introduction. You're doing the Viper attack, and then you break the board. That was was that all you doing all the kicks
Yes.
in that?
Yeah, that was our first day of filming, and, I'm coming off super rusty on martial arts, but had just been training for a couple months for this show, and come in the first thing that we do, top of day, it's, like, maybe 8 a.m. They're like, "You're gonna do this combo." I said, "Okay, how long do I have to learn it? Like, maybe a week?" And they're like, "No, you're gonna do it in 5 minutes." I was like, "What? Okay." And so we we went in, we were going punch, punch, right kick, and then we did, like, a little Naruto fake into a back spinning hook kick, and I was like, "Dang, they wanted to throttle immediately on the show, so
That's they showed no mercy to you guys even in the training. It sounds
yeah.
like. So like
Yeah, it was
you're
pretty crazy out there.
have you got like I mean, I know Brandon when I spoke to him, he was talking about his martial arts experience. But for
Mhm.
you, did you grow up with martial arts as well and
Yeah,
do a lot of that?
I grew up doing about, 10 years of taekwondo. I was a
Wow.
second degree black belt, and I dropped it when I was about, like, gosh, like 15, 16, right around there, and I kinda not done it for about 10 years before,
Wow.
I came back on the show. So it was kinda like dusting off it was like, going in to the Miyagi-Do box and being like, "What's this dusty old thing that I haven't seen in a long time?" and opening it up,
Yeah.
you know? It's to choose a metaphor from the show. So it was a little bit of
Honestly,
that,
like, that's a full circle for you as well then with the martial arts, like doing
yeah,
taekwondo.
absolutely, absolutely. It was really I've said this before, I said this I think in Peter's, interview with Cobra Kai Companion, but, it was really amazing to, like, rediscover martial arts and my love for it while being on the show where, like, martial arts is such a huge portion of the show, and so, yeah, being able to work with just the incredible stunt team and with people like Brandon and Alicia and Marty and just being able to train with them, it was really incredible.
For sure. And I mean, I think it's so cool that you guys are able to I know the show is like essentially, Miyagi does karate and so is Cobra Kai, but I love
Mhm.
still the inclusions of all these different styles. And being able to do taekwondo, something you did growing up and that being an important part of your life growing up. How did it feel representing that on the screen in Cobra Kai?
Dude, pretty amazing. It's like it's one thing to represent that and being like, "Oh, I get to showcase this martial art that I love and that I grew up with," right? But on top of that, it's also like we get to, represent Korea and we get to represent like this
Yeah.
badass dojo taking on the name of Cobra Kai. You have Cobra Kai written in Hangul on the gi. It's pretty
So cool. I
amazing.
love
So
that logo,
it
dude.
feels
It's very cool.
it feels really badass to show up and to take stage like that. Yeah, man.
For sure. I can imagine that being really cool. And to talk more about Yoon, so I understand when we're introduced to him, he's wearing I might butcher this, but the
Yeah.
Gombeji, is that
Yeah,
how you'd say
Kumpeji.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kumpeji would be like the gold badge. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I would love to learn more Korean. Like, it's such a cool language. Just the way you guys say words, it's so interesting as well.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
like, it's a very cool language. I think this whole dynamic between Kwon and Yoon, it was the most interesting thing about the students. And like as Alicia's character Sensei Kim said, Yoon is whatever you ask of him, he will do to perfection. And your family or his family's been training there throughout generations at that dojang. So
Mhm.
your character has clearly got this important backstory in a sense that he's not just the first in his family. He's like generations passed down. So, what was the backstory that you were given when you first were playing the character of Yoon, or when you first found that out?
Yeah, so I had what was on the page, right, which was his family was in this Tojang for generations, that they're clearly like, top like martial artists, and he's a top student, right? And he takes a lot of pride in the fact that he has that Gunpeji. And then something that I got to, like, come in and collaborate with John, Josh, and Hayden with was asking kinda where Yoon was going, and then I got to build back, like, where he had come from. So there's kind of a lot of unspoken things that, Alicia and I found that it's kind of felt like that I was, like, her favorite student, but when Marty came in, that Kwon was his favorite student. So there's a little
Right.
quiet
Yeah.
power right there. And then, talking to John, Josh, and Hayden, we kinda built out that Yoon, as clean cut and professional and sharp as he is, that's kind of like what it seems like his approach to life is. He's like the perfect soldier. And on top of that, he's probably like a
Oh, I
great
like that.
student, right? Things are going okay for him, Whereas then you have Kwon and he's this kind of wild, untamable chaos. And so having the two of us being this like really sharp, structured guy and this really wild, like tiger of a man, like these two students being the top two at Korea, like really created a fun dynamic for the both of us as we were in both part one in episode 3, and then who knows what might happen next part. So yeah, it was really, really fun to build that with Alicia and with John, Josh, and Hayden and off of the words on the page.
For sure, and I think that dynamic was so fun to watch because,
Oh, thanks, man.
you see the way your personality stands up straight away when Kreese goes, the thing he gives you more of that story on Daniel and Johnny and how, how did a runt, scrawny runt beat his top student? And,
Yeah.
Yoon's the first to say to have more heart. Like he's obviously a smart guy and he's at the top of the dojo for a reason. But then, yeah, just to see Kwon come in, like, there's just you can sense that like recklessness or that inner like I should be at the top. You and Brandon must have had a lot of fun playing opposing characters, and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
yin yang, like the balance of having two different types. So how did it feel working with Brandon
Oh man.
on those scenes, man? We'll definitely dive more into it, but just
Yeah.
how that felt.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, Brandon, I love the dude. He's an amazing guy. Like everything that you're seeing from him, like he's such a chill, nice guy that it's crazy that on screen he's this wild, like trash talking, but behind camera, he's just the nicest, chillest guy with like a great energy and also like real professionalism. I think one thing that like people haven't actually heard is that Brandon and I shared the same flight over from like LA to Atlanta, and we were kinda eyeing each other down the aisle. I was like, "Is that the guy
Oh
who's gonna be playing?"
wow.
And so we found out as we landed, we're like, "Oh, we're both in the same show. We're in the same scenes." So from minute
Oh, that's
1,
cool.
when we landed into Atlanta, the 2 of us, we took the same car and we started running lines together. And that was, like, the dynamic that
Oh.
Brandon and I had that entire time. Like, he's a phenomenal professional, and the 2 of us just love the work, and we wanted to, like, take the show and really carry it with good stewardship to make sure that people felt like, "We know that this is gonna be crazy, and we wanna hold it really well." So, for Brandon, both working with him as an actor and also on the stunt side, man, dude, everything that you see on screen, he's like that's him in real life. He's incredible.
For sure. And yeah, when I first saw Kwon and then like just seeing Brandon, I'm like, yeah, because I remember he was saying that the big three were worried if he was going to be able to play a character that like chaotic when he's such a
Yeah,
cool, nice guy in person. Um, but that's actually really cool. You guys like that's definitely full circle, and that was fate, right? Like you guys had the
for
same
sure.
flight, went there together.
I don't
Um,
believe in coincidences, man.
nah,
Yeah, you
100%,
get put on the
man.
same flight together? Yeah, I don't believe in
Yeah, come
coincidences. So,
on.
yeah, a whole lot of love to
That's
Brandon.
For sure, and that's actually a really cool little life lesson, I guess, as well. That if you have belief in like you believe in law of attraction, right? On all those types of things.
Yeah, yeah,
Like just
for
like when
sure,
you
for
put
to an
something out
extent.
there, like comes back to you, something like Kumiko said in season 3,
For
even like
sure.
just the good stuff. But yeah, like I've always been faithful and just spiritual in that way. Like
I
things
love that,
happen
man.
for a reason. It's not just just like that. It is really
Yeah, man.
sometimes in life that happens. But so with you and like you said, his personality, he's very like textbook, I feel. And then you got like Brandon, who's kind of like the street kid out of the two, right?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
I sense that honor and discipline in Yoon, and I feel even though these students really are embracing that no mercy through Kreese and really learning more
mhm.
of that through him rather than just Sensei Kim, I feel like there's something about him that he isn't. he doesn't have that sense of. I feel like he would still have honor even if in the tournament setting, if there was to be a
Mm.
situation where he's put under some pressure, like Kreese with Johnny
Yeah.
in '84. I feel like Yoon would still have the honor not to do something. Like, just to like describe to
Mm.
me how that personality with Yoon sort of resonates with you.
I mean, I think what I'll say, because a lot of that you get to see in part 2, and be hyped for it, but, I think a lot of what is interesting about Yoon is how he shows up earlier in episode 3, and I don't know if you would think of him as your typical, like, antagonist immediately. He's like a top student, he's doing his job, he's trying to keep everyone in line, and
Mm.
yeah, he gets set on the wrong path by Kreese and, bullying or shoving, Kwon and them getting set up against each other. But I think it'd be interesting to question, like, what if John Kreese hadn't been the sensei for Korean Cobra Kai? If it was Johnny
Right.
Lawrence instead, I wonder how Kwon and Yoon would have shaken out, you know what I mean? But when they go
Wow.
into part
Yeah.
2, John Kreese, he's a hurricane, and whenever he goes, everything gets swept up in that hurricane? So as we go into part 2 and he's kind of sharpened up Kwon into this lethal weapon and is sending Korean Cobra Kai as this army into the Sekai Taikai, I think you're gonna start to see that John Kreese is not to be messed with.
Right. And Kreese on this journey, he's always been about no mercy, but I feel like this is the first time that he's genuinely implemented to be heartless. Like, it's such a statement from him. And for for
Mhm.
for the for the students like you, and I mean, I can only imagine that if his duty and honor is to be the best student he can, I'm sure he would honor that. But someone like Kwon, I'm kind of worried how Kreese might affect these
Yeah.
students.
How he's
Because,
gonna
the
take
way
him and
he
go.
is, and, Kreese has never been put in a situation that's, I mean, he's nearly got like some of his own students like killed or hurt really badly. But I think with this Sakai Takai, it is worrying with the way Kreese is because he's at his most dangerous. So,
Oh, for sure.
that observation is interesting. But also working with Marty, in that scene, how did it feel working with him in that episode?
Yeah, man. Dude, Marty's amazing. He's incredible. He's the sweetest guy, and he's like the opposite of John Kreese in real life. I mean, he's like as in like he's like so kind and so sweet, and he's got like, always got stories to tell, and he's a really, really incredible presence. But, when he turns it on and he's Kreese and he's like this gunslinging, he's like that kind of intense sensei, he
Yeah.
has that too. It's pretty amazing. I think I remember it was one time, it was the opening episode of, like, of episode 3, and he's doing that pace back and forth where he's talking about Daniel and Johnny, right, and their story, and he was shooting us, like, looks every single time, and he ends up, like, landing at Brandon, but each time, I remember he would come up to me, to Sungo, and Cowie as he's doing the walk, and, like, every time he looked at us, it felt like there was just, like, fire coming out of his eyes, like, he's just lightning shooting because he's just so in it. Yeah, so working with Marty's amazing. It's like electric, man. It's such an honor to be able to work with him.
I feel that whenever Martin walks in a room, it's like you've got that. He's got that Clint Eastwood vibe about him, right?
He does,
You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
Like, I feel like you said, like just whenever you
Cigar
see him, like,
smoking, yeah.
yeah, the cigar. Oh, that was one of the coldest scenes, by the way, in episode 3, which we will touch on.
Yeah, man.
Um, but like, yeah, I think we said this actually when we were at on the red carpet about if you're smoking a cigar with Marty, you made it. You're
Yeah,
up
man.
there.
I told you that story where he offered me, he was like, "You know what? I'll get you a Cuban." And he was trying he was explaining the difference between we were in between takes, and I remember it was, like, me and Marty talking, because we are just we're long days on set, it's, like, 10, 12 hours. And then he's talking to me, he turns to me, he's like, "You know, like, what the difference between a Cuban and a Dominican cigar is?" I was like, "No, I don't." He's like, "It's Cuban seeds, but they plant it in the soil. So doesn't matter where it's from, the Cuban soil is gonna be the best." So he just started talking, and we have Kevin, our AD, going like, "Marty, we need to go. We need to roll for the scene." He's like, hold on. I'm talking to Daniel about cigars." So that was Marty.
Oh, that's amazing. I think like could you imagine that was the way of getting the the honor of being top student? Imagine you just had to smoke a
Yeah,
cigar with
that's what
that.
Yoon
That
did in real life. That's actually the
that's what
backstory
you.
there.
Oh man, that's brilliant. I think yeah, I feel like I mean I've never smoked a cigar, but I've said this to friends that if I
Neither have
do,
I.
it's gotta be a big milestone. or it's got to be with Marty. That's the only way, you know. That's the only way. Or
Gotta be with Martin Cove.
it's got to be some other like equivalent thing, but it's probably hard to like top that, right? So with would you say like with this dojo, you know, really embracing no mercy, and you know, the students learning something pretty new from Kreese.
Mhm.
And you know, we're assuming these guys are like so efficient at being karate students, and you know, doing the absolute best they can to dominate this upcoming Sekai Taikai. With Yoon specifically, would you say he is fully about no mercy? You know, as much as maybe someone like Kwon, or do you think there's still that restraint within him?
Yeah, I remember you talking about honor and duty and that kind of, like, core of something good. I think Yoon does have that. I think he's kinda like, if Kwon is, like, full on chosen level, irredeemable, like, asshole, punching people in the face, like, doesn't give a crap. I think Yoon lands somewhere around, like, Miguel or Robbie. Like, depending on who
Right.
he's influenced by, he could be better or it could be worse. And I think, he does have that kinda that good heart underneath it, but
Mm,
John Kreese is really good at teaching mercilessness, you know what I mean?
right.
Like, we literally
Yeah.
have mujabi on our belts, mujabi, which means
Right.
merciless in Korea or no mercy,
I remember
so
Frank telling me about that. That was a cool touch on the
oh,
belts
it's such a cool touch, but
and the coloring.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think with that mentality, because Yoon is such a perfect soldier, no matter how he feels, he's gonna execute, you know what I mean? But I think it'll be interesting to see where he goes.
Right, and I like how you said the way, you know, if he's a Miguel or Robbie, because in the fandom, I mean, everybody has been comparing like, who is Yoon in this dojo, who is Kwon in this, and I immediately hear this comparison with Miguel, and I like that because I can definitely sense that same sort of heart,
Mm,
same sort of energy, and you know, like Kwon has definitely got that hawk energy about him. Like,
yeah,
I really can't wait to see if they bump heads. But yeah, with Yoon, I think I can imagine him coming across one of the students in the dojo, if this is without him being influenced in a sense, but you know, having a fight, but you know, bowing and being honorable and respectable about whatever happens. But I think
mhm.
that's the interesting thing I feel about you, and it's just, you know, again, like you said, Chris could really change him and make him something he's never thought he'd be. Um, but to touch on the no mercy aspect, as I said, how you guys have brought your A game in these
Yes,
fights,
sir!
man. Holy shit, dude! That
Thank you, man, thank you.
honestly, you and Brandon in episode 3, man, that fight, you know, where he just basically goes, "I've had enough. I'm gonna be the top dog."
Mhm.
What did you your first reaction to reading that in the script and knowing you guys were gonna have this like insane like fight and just this story aspect that fans are gonna be so excited to see? Like, how did that make you feel?
Dude, when am I gonna get my lick back, man? That guy put me in the dirt. He put me in the
Yeah,
dirt.
yeah. Man, I
I
felt
was
bad for
like
you,
it was
man.
actually
I did feel
it
bad.
was so funny. I mean, reading it on the page was awesome because
Mm.
the writers are creating this incredible moment, this dramatic build to set up their antagonist, and you know, I'm like, come on, can I get like one good hit in, one or two, But they're like, nah, like Quan is he's built different, and so no, it was an amazing time in shooting that fight. We had like we literally learned the fight the day before we shot it.
Wow.
And it was like we had 2 days for episode 3 for our portion in Korea. And so we shot like all the dialogue scenes and then the fight was the last thing on the second day. We had like maybe 2-3 hours to shoot it. I
Wow.
remember like, it's kind of a blur how fast it went. But I remember, like, all of us just, like, sitting down, like, getting into the choreography, like, hyping each other up, and it was, like, to be able to execute that, it was pretty incredible. Um, yeah, I don't know if you heard, but, about that last kick, but Brandon was, like we were so hyped and so in it that, like, we ended up, like, he ended up making contact, and so the scream that you hear or the yell that you hear
Oh,
in the video is actually me, like, going, "Ugh!"
yo.
But it looks
Wow.
so awesome and so
It
convincing.
did.
It's so worth it, and,
Yeah.
Brandon's such an incredible martial artist. I wasn't hurt at all, it just, like, sold it that much more.
Oh, it felt so real, like, it's just the way he kicks you, and then I love
Yeah.
the little, like, dialogue you guys have with each other because I think Brandon was saying some of it was, like, improv, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
when
it was. You know
when
that line, the "Keep talking, bitch." You know that?
yeah,
Can I
when he
swear?
did
Can I swear on
that.
the show? Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's not that
that
bad,
was
no.
improv. That was us, like, that was us bantering back and forth and seeing, like, what would land, how we could dig at each other. I remember in the day, like, Brandon and I got really into character, and so, by that time, I was hearing him just he kept talking, and I was like, "Listen to this guy yap." And so I went 계속 말해봐, 개새끼." And,
It's like,
which is
yeah,
that line,
I
yeah.
laughed so hard when you said that because you, like, doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would swear a lot, but then the fact that Kwon was making you go, like, call him a yeah, you called him a bitch, like,
Yeah.
I just laughed so hard at
This
that.
Hey, man, he's
But
still
that,
up.
that fight scene, so, run me through the process, like, I know you said you had limited time on it, but, like, was that, like, the version you guys are always intending to have, or was there, like, a sort of different version, or did you have multiple versions that you tried to have with that scene?
Yeah, that's a great question. The stunt team is incredible, by the way. Like, mad props to them and to the
Don and
cast.
Ken
Like
are the
this,
guys, yeah.
yeah. Don's the fight coordinator. Ken Bearfield, and then Tony Chung, who's our stunt utility.
Oh, Tony, absolute
They're
legend. He's an
freaking
awesome guy.
amazing. So good. But yeah, what real big kudos to them is pretty much all the choreography that we set up the day before was the exact moves that we were doing the day of. And I think
Right.
the only thing that might have changed is them figuring out camera angles or combining some shots. But I guess to get into the real like nitty gritty, it was really clean. Like Don and Ken knew exactly what shots they wanted, exactly which sequences they wanted to film, and they just put cameras on it. Abe and his team, like they were just flying through, just moving in between us, getting those camera angles. And they were like, "This is section one start, section one end," and they went into section two, and it was a blitz. So yeah, it's like a well-oiled machine, and the fact that the cast can execute that choreography that quickly and look that good is, dude, it's amazing. It never ceases to amaze me.
It's honestly one of the coolest fights I think we've seen in the show, and also I've said this to a
Thank
lot
you.
of people that yeah, of course, and this fight is like arguably one of the craziest we've seen from one of the younger characters in the sense of I don't think in this show we've ever seen a character like around that age actually punch one of their own like teammates in the throat, like
Oh.
in the trachea, because when Kwon like punches you in the throat
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
start
yeah.
I think the only time we'd seen that is when Terry Silver did it to Johnny
T
in season
That's right,
4,
that's right. Yeah, the students
and
haven't
then
done, like, a throw punch or
no,
anything like that. They haven't gone
no,
that brutal.
that's the first time. So this
Yeah.
that was a shock in itself, and I was like, "Wow, these guys aren't well, Quan's are holding back," but that was a statement for you
Yeah,
guys in this tournament. Um, there's no you're not holding any back, not holding anything back right there, especially Kwon because he has
for
that
sure.
anger within him. But
Mhm.
just as a martial artist yourself, would you say that the way Yoon fights reflects how you would, or like how would you go about like what would Daniel J. Kim be like in a real fight?
I mean, I think in a real fight, I'd be like, "I'm good, man. Like, you can have the badge. It's fine.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
really nice meeting
as
you.
Miyagi says, no
You're
be
so
there.
cool, dude. I love your anime hair. I'll take a back seat."
Yeah.
Um, no, I think that's how I go about it in real life. But yeah, funny thing about Yoon is Yoon and I are, I think there's for all actors, you'll take some pieces of yourself to inform, the character. But Yoon and I are very different. I
Mm.
think one, like, I don't mind n not being the top student at a martial arts dojo, and I don't really wanna get beat up to prove a point,
Yeah,
I
right.
think I'm good,
Yeah,
but,
no, that's
in
good.
but in terms of the kicks and stuff, I think what's awesome about the stunt team is they try to work around your strengths, and so
Mm.
they saw that I had a taekwondo background, and even though I was rusty, they helped train me up again and kinda polish that off, and so as an actor, from that kind of standpoint, it was fun to be able to, like, have my physicality be used to serve that character really well. So, yeah, I think that was just fortunate, little coincidence, little serendipity there. Yeah.
For sure. I I'm curious. So even though you have this foundation with martial arts and working on Cobra Kai and working with the stunt team, would you say there's something about like personally with your own martial arts? Was there anything in particular that's evolved for you since working on this show?
Oh my god, yeah, I think, you can't be in a room with, Ken and with Don and with Tony and with the rest of the cast, right, and with Brandon and not be like, "Oh, I gotta bring my A game." It's
Mm,
it's
for
like
sure.
it's like you're training for the Olympics together, they'd all put us into the stunt dojo and we'd all run through rehearsals, we'd look at fights together, we'd practice moves, on the off time, we'd be working out. So I think, if anything, it reminded me of how much camaraderie and how like a family it is to be able to do that, and how much I miss that.
Mm,
And then on top of that, like those amazing memories that we made, like both on and off set. For me, it reminded me, I was like, it takes a lot of discipline to be able to do the things that they had to do and that we got to do on episode 3 and make that possible. And so for me, I think coming back from Atlanta, I've kind of restructured some things to be like, dang, I really want to reincorporate that, re-remember that part of my life and how amazing it was. So yeah, man.
for sure. I want to say that your character working with like two really great senseis is obviously benefit a lot from Sensei Kim's
Alicia,
teachings. Shout out
Marty.
to Alicia, and of course with Kreese. But I want to ask you, as yourself, Daniel,
Mhm.
if you could choose any of the senseis in this show and you wanted to actually learn karate from, but it can't be Alicia or Martin because obviously you've already worked
Oh,
with
cause
them.
cause you already have them? Oh,
But
man.
if you had to pick one,
I feel
who are
like I'm
you really
betraying
gonna go?
Alicia and Marty, man. I feel like
I
they're my
respect the
homies.
loyalty. I respect the loyalty. I know it
Oh,
can be difficult.
okay. Oh, man, I feel like a copycat saying it because Brandon said it, but God,
Oh no,
I
I
would
can
love
see
to have
that big
Chosen
badass.
as my sensei. You know what I mean? Like, Chosen, he's so funny and he's also a badass, and he also has kind of got the mix of the Miyagi and the No Mercy. I think that's
Yeah.
perfect for Yoon. And I think like in my head canon, like Chosen would teach Yoon how to just like relax a little. It's like, dude, just chill. Like you can have fun. You don't have to be so stick up your butt and like so structured all the time. You can like live a little, you know? Like Chosen would
Yeah,
take him
I
out
get you.
drinking and they would be able to drink a little and he'd be like, "Okay, I can like live life," and Yoon would be a little bit more settled as a human being. I think it would help him.
Yeah, yeah. I could see that thinking about Chosen as well. He has that like Johnny Lawrence side to him as well, where he doesn't
Mhm,
like care. Like he has that honor and discipline, but then he has to switch off and enjoy himself. So he really is the best in terms of the balance. And man, Chosen, if Kwon and Yoon are this good, but they also have Chosen,
mhm.
and they were entering the tournament with Miyagi. I'm sorry, but the show ends there. That's it. We already
It's
know who the
done.
winners are.
It's done. Hey, I wanna see that Sekai Taikai. I wanna see that.
Oh, okay. This is a
We'll make it
tough
happen.
one.
We'll make it happen.
We'll
We'll do
make
like
that
a van
happen.
we'll make
We'll
it
make
happen.
that happen. If you could pick a so okay, there's 6 students that can be in the tournament for each team. I
Mhm.
want you to pick your dream team for the Sekai Takai if you could pick 6.
Ooh. For, like, all in like, Miyagi-Do? For, like or just, like,
Any dojo,
any
the Korean
dojo?
dojo, yeah,
Oh,
anyone.
man.
6 students and I guess the 2 senseis.
Okay, well, I gotta say Yoon, 'cause I gotta represent my boy.
Gotta
I
represent,
gotta take
gotta
care of my
represent.
guy. If I could do one dojo, I think it'd be awesome to have I'm gonna throw it back. I'm gonna say Mr. Miyagi, Pat Morita as the sensei.
Ooh!
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say, Johnny Lawrence as the 2nd sensei, and then for
Miyagi and
the
Johnny, that would
6
be cool.
kids, I'll take Yoon, I'll take Kwon, I'll take Miguel, I'll take Tori, I'll take Sam, and then I'll take Hawk because it's
Oh,
Jacob.
dude, that is
I
a that's
gotta
an
take Jacob, and
all-star.
that's a lineup. That's a
That's an
lineup right
all-star,
there,
man. I love
taking
that.
the world championship by storm.
I mean, I'm that was a smart selection, not just because 'cause they're great students, but, like, Miyagi as well, because we know his past is somewhat connected to the Sakai Take. What did you think of that, by the way? Because that was, like, one of the craziest things I think we've seen in the show.
Yeah. I mean, I got to read it in the script, but seeing it in the show and in the episode, I was like, "Oh, dang, like, oh, man, like, is there more to Mr. Miyagi's legacy that we don't know about?" And I know for me, like, one of my favorite parts of The Karate Kid is, like, the little moments of Pat Morita's humanity of what might have been Miyagi's story beforehand, right? With him fighting in the war and, his past in Japan, and so I think for me, it's like that stuff I always loved, and so I'm like, "Oh, man, like, what other nuggets are we gonna get?" So even as a fan, besides being an actor in the show, I'm really excited to see where that goes.
For sure, and I think especially we have someone that's like the antithesis of Miyagi with Master Kim.
Mhm.
I mean, it's so crazy to see he's still alive in present day. I mean, man
That's
is
crazy,
still
man.
still kicking ass and
That's right.
still
You have
around.
the sweet, nice Asian dude, and you have the evil as heck Asian dude, and, I wanna see those 2 fight it out. Kim Sun Young
Dude,
and Mr.
I
Miyagi.
really want that. I think that will be probably one of the most brutal fights. And hey, man, if that's connected to what we saw with that headband, that's going to be nuts. But
Pretty
I will
wild.
say, was there any scenes that, from what I remember, I don't think we saw any scenes with Yoon and Kwon with
Mhm.
Master
In part
Kim.
2?
Did you film any scenes with
Oh.
Charlie?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I didn't get to see him on, episode 3, so, yeah, CS is really cool, but,
Hmm.
just because 'cause I'm familiar with his work from, like, Atla and from other stuff. But, yeah, I didn't get to film with him in episode 3, yeah, but Master Kim, man, he's intimidating, he's scary, he's a fun villain, man, so I hope we get to see more of him.
Oh, dude, I think it's just crazy how that just started off as just a line in the Karate Kid 3, and everyone probably thought, "Oh, it's probably not a real guy," and then how the Big 3,
Mhm,
created that to where it is now. What fascinates you the most about this universe and how it's able to honor original properties or original things in those films and how it does it in such a refreshing way in Cobra Kai? Because, like you said, there's not many shows that have been able to do this and in the way it has without ruining what was already there.
mhm. I think the magic of Cobra Kai, like, the reason why we love this show, why we keep coming back to this show is that it really the writers, they love their characters, and they love this world. And I think no matter what angle you see through it, whatever the writers are putting them through, the amount of conflict that we all get into, like, you can see how much they love these characters, and at the end of the day, that kinda heart is what buoyed The Karate Kid. It's what made it so, universal and so amazing. Like, it was so human, and then Cobra Kai just extends those human layers, right? The good, bad, the ugly, the grays in between, and karate fights every episode. I think, like, you add that mix together of heart and, like, fun action and good comedy, and, that's really the magic, is that there's no cynicism about it, but that I think the writers look at the original work, at Karate Kid and Karate Kid 2 and Karate Kid 3, and they see it for the magic of what it is, and they just have continued to honor the legacy of that in their own world, and I think that's really to be commended. I think the guys are genius.
100%, man, and,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely,
you can see the passion and respect they have for it and how they wanna elevate it, but not ruin what was there.
for
Uh,
sure.
One thing I wanna touch on for sure is that now Tori is back in Cobra Kai. I mean, that was a very big twist, right? And I'm sure we're gonna see how that spirals out in part 2, but
Mhm.
how if you can say, like, how do you think Yoon's gonna feel about someone from the opposing end coming into their dojo, especially when they find out, like, Tori's, connections with Miyagi-Do and who she knows, and especially her being with Robbie, how that sort of affects the dynamic with, the Korean Cobra Kais.
Well, I mean, first of all, would it be Cobra Kai without a heel turn? You know?
Yeah,
You gotta have
totally
one.
agree.
You gotta have
Yeah,
one, otherwise,
yeah,
is
it
it
was a
Cobra
big one.
Kai? But, yeah, I mean, Daniel J. Kim, I was so stoked that we got to have Peyton there and to be fighting alongside us. Yoon, I can't say too much yet because that's all to come, but, I think Yoon going into the Sekai Taikai, since he's gonna be a part of part 2 in some way, um, I think that, him being on a team with a girl who he does not know, who he has not trained with, and who is an American, and the only voucher that she has is Kreese, this guy who came in from out of nowhere, it's gonna take some warming up for sure.
Hmm. I think that's definitely one thing I'm looking forward to is seeing how they're gonna treat Tori in that dojo, especially when they start to hear more about her. And obviously, Kreese is
Mhm.
he's the new American sensei, this old cavalry type sensei. He's obviously
Yeah.
like for you guys to see him, it's kind of like maybe when Chosen met the Miyagi Do students. Now it's kind of like they're
Mhm.
like, wow, who's this guy? What's he gonna bring to our teachings? So like in that sense, like there's a lot of respect for Crease, but I'm very curious if any of the students have that sense of is Kim is she got the right guy for us? Like, are we?
Mm.
gonna be able to accomplish winning this tournament with someone like Kreese. So that's
I mean,
an
brother, I guess we'll
interesting
have to
aspect.
see, man.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to see it November 15th. You might have to tune in for that.
I mean, hey, I really, really can't wait to see, like, Yoon actually. I mean, he was the top student for a while, and I don't know the exact
Mhm.
length of that, but would you say that Yoon's going into this to prove he's still the top, or do you think it's more about just trying to get the dub and yeah, get that title of winning the
I
tournament?
think I think for him, I think there is going in after that pretty crushing, soul crushing defeat. I think for him, there is a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, for whatever wherever he may be. But I think for him, it's about Korea, it's about his team, you know, more than it is about any like personal grudge. He's gonna prove it in his way. So yeah,
Love that, love that, Daniel. It's been a blast talking to you. Thank you for coming
dude,
on Cobra Kai Nation. I know once we
Moon, a
release
pleasure,
this,
man.
honestly, thank you, man. It's been a pleasure having you on, and I can't wait for all the fans to see part two. I mean, they've loved you in part one. Yoon is a great character. Thank you for everything you brought to him, and also anything you just want to say before we sign this off to the fans
Yeah.
of the show.
All I'll say is if y'all watch this whole thing and you haven't seen part one yet, what are you doing? We're putting spoilers left and right. Go watch that thing. It's on Netflix. And then
Watch
the
it.
part two drops on November
Watch it.
15th. So yeah, man, it's been awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
I mean, if no one, and you're welcome, but if no one has seen part six or season six, whilst this is on the channel, then are they really a Cobra Kai fan?
Dang. Dang. Can you even
Like,
be subscribed? That's crazy.
yeah, that's even crazier. But yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, Daniel, it's been absolute pleasure, bro. Thank you for